Hey guys, so I got a really special guest for you guys today. This is Blake. So Blake is basically a master at scaling offers. He scaled a bunch of really big offers that you've probably seen. Blake, so you basically worked with Traffic and Funnels, the sales mentor. I'm sure you've worked with Dan Locke. So this guy, I want to ask him today about all the nitty gritty of scaling offers to $1 million a month and beyond. And yeah, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, and that's quite an introduction. But I'll take as many compliments as I can get from you, my good man. And yeah, we could just rock and roll with scaling offers, and I'll try to provide as much value as I can.
Awesome. So could you just describe what you actually do, right? Like what have you been doing over the last few years? Because you have an interesting role that really doesn't get talked about much.
Well, that's a really interesting question because I started out with my title being as a profit manager. So basically, I was supposed to be coming in to maximize the profit and make sure that the profit percentage stays above a certain point within the business unit. But it really quickly grew into, I guess what I would call it now is like the VP of new product development. So essentially, I have to cover everything from media buying to marketing strategy to price points, building the offer, and most of the stuff that I have done is info products. So courses, content, stuff like that, and I've been pretty pivotal in being able to put those offers together, bring in the gurus for certain offers that we have, like finding the right salesperson to represent the offer, and also pretty much everything from finances to media buying and course creation. You have to know how to do everything.
Got it. So you're basically the guy that's like, okay, let's say there's this new offer that you guys want to roll out. You guys have a guru slash expert at it, but you need somebody to actually plan the whole thing, make sure all the moving pieces happen, and then be able to make sure the thing scales fast. So that's essentially what you're handling here.
Yeah, kind of sitting at the battle map with all the pieces and just like moving them everywhere they need to go, because we've got a copywriter, we've got a media buyer, we've got a video guy, we've got obviously like Kristen Taylor at Traffic and Funnels, and in the past I had Dan Locke as the talent and stuff like that. So it does involve a lot of moving parts and pieces, but if you plan it right and do it right, you can scale really, really high.
Got it. That's interesting. And what would you say, because a lot of info product entrepreneurs, right, from what I see and what I've experienced is they're literally one guy with maybe like a sales rep, right? While in your case, it's kind of, you guys are playing at a different level where it's kind of systemized product scaling. That's the way I see it, is you have a system for scaling offers. So Blake, if I understand correctly, right, you're basically not the one who is, writing the ads, shooting the ads. You're not writing the VSLs. You're basically coordinating everybody. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And for anybody that's like watching this and they want to do their own offer, they don't, it doesn't mean that you have to write it yourself. There's never a situation where you absolutely have to write it yourself. You can easily go out and partner with a copywriter. Just know that when you do, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to give the copywriter some type of deal. So it could be $1 per front end unit that they sell, or it could be like a percentage of rev share. There's a bunch of different ways you can kind of slice that, but ultimately they're going to be treated as a partner on the offer because they're doing most of the heavy lifting.
That makes sense. And then you guys also hire media buyers to scale up each offer as well.
Yeah, so we've had a couple different media buyers, and Traffic and Funnels has a ton of media buyers, and they're mostly all on Facebook. However, what we've been able to do is move away from Facebook, and actually, like the sales mentor, we did like 2 million in March, just pretty much running everything on YouTube and Bing, and obviously having some Google search remarketing campaigns and stuff like that, like branded search. But ideally, you don't really want to do everything yourself, because I've been guilty of that before, where I'm like, well, I can run the ads, I can do this, I can do that. But if you can find somebody that's better than you, and I guarantee that there's many people out there that are better than you at certain things that you do, just plug them right into either a working offer. Ideally, for a media buyer, you want the offer to be working and converting before you plug them in. Otherwise, you can bring them in and they'll get discouraged if they don't see results right away. Whereas if you can plug them into an already converting offer, or at least you have some data for them to leverage, instead of just plugging them into something completely blind and cold, then you're going to be much better off keeping them long term.
Yeah. So that's actually a really interesting point that you make, which is, you kind of want to do the heavy lifting of figuring out if the offer is solid before you hire a media buyer on. And that's actually my next question, right? So, for example, with the sales mentor, as you mentioned, you guys did $2 million in March, which is absolutely insane. How long ago did you launch that offer? Hey, this is going to be really quick. I wanted to introduce you to a few people that are killing it with YouTube ads. Mike made over $1.5 million with e-commerce YouTube ads. Bastian did over $300,000 for a client at a 10x ROAS. Boyd's making $5 grand a day with his course. Kale made a client $40,000 from just $8,000 in ad spend. Lloyd made a client $33,000 from $12,000 in ad spend. Do you know what the one thing they have in common? They're all part of my expert YouTube ads training program. We have the most technical YouTube ads course in the market with live weekly calls, a Facebook group where you can ask any question you want about YouTube ads, and more. And some of the best students spending thousands or even $10,000 a day on YouTube advertising. So there's a link below in the description to go book a demo call. Go and book a call to get a preview of the course and see if it's a fit for you and if it can help you get your YouTube ads to $5,000 a day or more. Now let's get back to the rest of this video.
So back in January of 2020 was when I kind of came in and, we were doing 30 to 45K a month. And then we launched the inbound closer offer at the end of February, started to spool it up a bit more, early March. And then by June, we were at 7 figures a month.
Yeah, so that just goes to show how insanely fast you can scale up if you have the right type of offer and so on. So my question is let's say the beginner, the foundational phase, right? Where you have an idea, you have a course, you're an expert, right? And for me, I have my YouTube ads course and training program that I sell. And I'm okay, I'm at the beginning stages where I'm running ads for it. The ads are starting to show some promise and I'm getting appointments. But how do you handle that whole beginning phase? Is there kind of a period where you go through a market research phase, or how do you determine that, okay, this offer is the one we want to scale, or how do you determine that, hey, no, we need to change this around? How does those first few months look like?
Well, they look hectic for the most part in a blanket statement, but to answer your question more thoroughly, there's actually somebody was asking me about this really early this morning. And they were saying, what's the biggest mistake that people make when creating a front-end offer, especially a course or an info product? And I said, the number one thing is building something that no one wants to buy. That is the absolute worst thing you could do. And actually, the timing of this interview is probably really good too, because I actually spent a large portion of my week last week thinking about ways to validate new offers quickly. And if you want, I can share a couple with them on the call here. So the first thing is, because a lot of times what people will do is, this is more for if they go low ticket, right? So if they go low ticket, they'll usually build out this entire product, if they're doing a course, they'll do all the course lessons and stuff like that. And they'll price it out, build out the funnels. Sometimes it'll take 30, 60, 90 days to write the copy from end to end for the offer. And then you launch it, and then it's kind of falling on deaf ears and people are not buying it like you hope they would. And usually that comes down to the person who is the subject matter expert thinking that everybody else is just as excited about what they do as they are. But that's rarely the case. You have to actually do your market research. So check out Google Trends and see what's going on. Do search around, do a lot of market research, check Reddit threads, everything you got to do. But something that you can do is just, instead of building a whole end-to-end funnel, do a really condensed version. Even just do an opt-in to a simple sales page that makes the offer, it's really clear. And then instead of even having a checkout page and all that stuff, all you have to do is have an opt-in that says, name, phone number, email address, kind of like the step one of a 2-step order form. And then when they submit it, then that person will come in as a lead who had the intent to buy. And then instead of having the product plugged in, you can run $500 or something like that worth of traffic and get a good amount of data to see like, hey, does this have legs? Because then you can see what's the opt-in rate like, what's how many people who opted in are actually filling out that order form. And then after that order form page, you just put a thank you that just says, hey, thank you very much for your interest. We'll send you an email, once this product is live or whatever like that, so that you can purchase. And, and then if you are kind of ethically like, oh, that, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how can you do that? You totally can do that as long as you're very clear. And I wouldn't spend a lot of budget doing that, but it's a good initial test. And then, alternatively, if you want to do it a different way, something else that I thought of recently was where essentially what you do is you build like a call funnel, which those are usually quite a bit easier to build, but you're just very clear in what the product is, what it does, who it's for, and then they book a call. And then let's say that your ultimate goal is to price it at, $497, or maybe it's maybe you're doing like lower ticket, like 97, or you're doing a $27 product on the front end. It doesn't matter what the price point is. Or even if you want to go high ticket and sell it at like 5K or up, then what you do is you just do a simple call funnel. Again, you spend $500 to $1,000, they can come through. And if you are booking calls within your KPI, so let's say your target is to book calls for like $100 or $150 max, then when they come through, you can charge them like $997, or if you wanted to just go right for the 5K and try it, you can. But the great thing about this is that you can actually get so much market feedback from these sales calls that you're taking with these people, because you can ask them, hey, like, what made you book a call? And why are you here? Because then even if you don't close them, then at least you're gathering data and qualitative data, knowing what to change about your sales page. Or maybe they said something on a call that they said something like, I was going to buy your YouTube ads course, but I thought that I needed experience for at least 2 years. And then
that's interesting. Yeah.
And then in the sales page, you put it on the you just make an FAQ that says, do I need experience for this? And it's like, no, our course shows you how to, like, if you're brand new, you can start from scratch, or you just do it on the sales calls themselves and just, handle that objection much easier ahead of time.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I also find that interesting where currently, like, the whole market, like 95% of the market goes with high ticket course first, and then maybe they'll add in a low ticket as a way to scale. While in this, it seems like you prefer to start with a $97 or somewhere around there, and then have the high ticket on the back end. Would that be accurate? Or?
Yeah, so that is actually very true. Most people, and actually Traffic and Funnels is probably a good example of this, where they actually developed Client Kit first, and that was their high ticket 10K program, right? And then over time, they were trying to develop new front end products to self-liquidate their ad spend. But I can tell you that they've probably made over 20 different front end products in the last, year and a half, 2 years, because not every single one of them is going to work. And then the other thing that happens is you might be self-liquidating that new front-end product, but they don't ascend at the rate that you need them to make the economics work. So let's say that, you launch 10 front-end products to try to work them up to the high ticket part. And then what ends up happening is, if you have those 10, usually you'll have 9 of them that will have 3% of people that get the upsell or the back-end high ticket product. And then you'll have 1 where it's like 10% of people buy the back end. And then that gives you an inclination as to, which product is bringing in your most ideal type of client. That's not to say that you should disqualify those other products, but it does tell you what your market actually needs and wants. And if you want a bonus tip in here too, I can tell you that there actually was a recent front-end product that Traffic and Funnels introduced that like majority of the front-end products were going from the front end to the Client Kit course or the high ticket at like 3 to 4%, usually 5% max. and then they introduced this product, and it was, I think it's like 10 or 11%.
Mhm.
The reason for that is they actually took the most, arguably one of the most valuable pieces of the 10K program, and they turned it into a front end and priced it at $27.
Wow.
And they could easily go out and charge like $1,000, 5K for that training alone, but because they put it low ticket, they're able to get so much more and buy so much more market share. And then the key differentiator is that because that piece is actually part of the high ticket that's designed to get them results quickly, the people that take that at the $27 level, they start landing clients at a higher rate so that they're further along in their journey to being ready to buy the high ticket once they're there. So instead
That
of
is so
making,
interesting.
so instead of like making a teaser front end product where you're like, oh, I'm going to show you this or
Yeah.
that. It's like
Yeah.
even for you, like to make a front end product, you could easily just take something from your YouTube ads course, take it like a really really cool chunk, or like the pitfalls. Like you can make the pitfalls like one of your front ends. You put that in the front, and then they're like, oh man, I just saved like $1,000 a day in wasted ad spend thanks to what I learned from this. I wonder how much more value I can get if I get the full program.
Wow. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I can see how that could work with, for example, right? Like there's certain things that people have issues with. Number one is like, let's say the ad account isn't profitable because, ideally, let's say in their journey, right? They got to first like set up their first ads, right? Like they got to set up their first ads. No, and then obviously they got to shoot the ad, right? So they got to shoot the ad before they even set up the ads. And then they got to actually do the whole optimization thing to get profitable, and they got to scale. So it's like these pieces of the puzzle where if you can solve one thing that they feel like, okay, this has helped them. So for example, if you teach them how to launch their first ad, right? Like do the scripting, do the shooting, launch their first ad and get them, like something, right? Where they're like, oh, this is some promising results. And then basically from there, they're like, okay, now I want to learn how to scale this. I want to learn how to optimize this. I want to learn how to get better results. So like, as long as it gets them on the right direction. And that's super interesting. Would
Yeah.
you recommend to people who are like scaling their offers, would you recommend that they, let's say, first try to get their high ticket offer to, let's say 6 figures a month or 7 figures a month? Or would you recommend that, hey, even if you've got a high ticket offer, like start doing these like front end splinter offers so you can like basically figure out what's kind of hitting with the market and be able to kind of scale that way? What do you think is kind of the more efficient route?
Well, it's kind of a catch-22 because, or like a double-edged sword type of situation, because if you do the back end first and the high ticket first, if that works, then you have like, you can get cash momentum. You can get a like more cash velocity where you've got money coming in the door to pay for and fund, your all your ads and pay your people, pay your HubSpot bill, because we know that those bills aren't going down anytime soon. So it's, but then it ultimately becomes more of a challenge to create a high converting front end that leads people to the back end. And then typically the high ticket that you've created takes up a lot of client success time, a lot of support time and stuff like that. So that's that side of the coin. If you go the other way, which is essentially developing the low ticket first, all of your focus and attention has to go into making that convert in a way that either ideally self-liquidates or even in some cases is profitable. Like, like the inbound closer offer, we were able to get profitable. We did another one, 4 or 5 months ago, and we were able to get that to, like, even after refunds, liquidate above break even. So it's like we're actually profiting on the front end, that anything that we sold on the back is actually 100% profit. So, but like getting that to work is definitely harder, I would say, than launching a high ticket. But the main thing I think that people miss is they kind of hold back on their low ticket offers because they're afraid to give away too much, because they're afraid that people won't buy the back end. But it's like, you don't have to do that. And I've actually been digging in this so much more, and because the market is so accustomed to, at this point, they're really accustomed to buying a low ticket thing and then they barely get anything out of it, that it's like if you go in and then you scoop up your piece of the market with your low ticket offer and you completely blow their minds,
Mhm.
it helps you to be as impactful as you can. Like we were just talking about, getting people along that journey or further along in their journey. Because if you're able to do that more effectively than the other people, then they're just going to churn and burn their front end buyers. Whereas if you do that, you have to treat them as if once they buy the front end, they're not a customer. They're like they're still a lead, because they're technically just a buyer lead that you're trying to bridge the gap from that front end product to the high ticket. And if you are able to effectively give them a significant or at least appreciable amount of results in the front end product, then by the time they get to the high ticket, they're like, hey, I'm already here on my journey. The next logical step is the high ticket. And then they'll take it at such a higher rate than if you pull your punches in the front end offer. And another thing you'll see is they'll just say, like, get a cheat sheet or get this or get that. And it's like, that's technically a lead magnet that you put a price tag on. That's not a full offer. Like, you have to actually put an offer together it should be as irresistible as possible so that you can self-liquidate as fast as possible.
Got it. So it's literally like you're trying to get them a result. You're not selling a front-end offer because, you're selling a front-end offer. You're actually trying to get them to the point where they're getting enough value from you and they're hopefully profitable enough where they'll buy your, like 8K or 10K offer.
Yeah. And to your point earlier too, with the YouTube ads program and stuff like that, a lot of other courses and other people out there are like, oh, get this course to know how to scale your YouTube ads. And it's like, I haven't even set one up before. Like, if you talk to people, they have no clue. Like, YouTube is kind of like an enigma. They don't know, because everybody knows Facebook, because thanks to like every course creator over the last 10 years, everybody's been pushing Facebook ads for so long. But now with like the Apple, the iOS 14 changes, and like everybody's kind of getting scared. Facebook's also banning people left, right, and center. YouTube's becoming more and more of a viable and highly profitable place to diversify your traffic to. That, like you were saying earlier, if the first step is, let's help you set up your first ad campaign, then it's like, once they're in that door and they have momentum, they're going to want to keep going. And then if you're like, hey, this is how you do, optimize, this is how you scale, this is how you cut your losers, this is how you do everything else, then they're like, oh, well, he showed me how to get started and it made total sense to me and it was really helpful. Why the hell wouldn't I get his high ticket thing, or why wouldn't I get the program in full so that I can experience 10 times more benefit than what I paid for this front end product?
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And from, I guess, what I'm understanding from what you did with scaling the Sales Mentor really, really fast is you kind of saw that, okay, if you want to scale this really, really fast, the front end model works better, right? Because with the high ticket, maybe you might have been able to get to 200K a month, but then eventually you run out of people who are going to pay, a ton of money for the offer without first kind of either you training them up a bit or without them first building some trust. Because when you're selling something for 5 to 10K, you're essentially, there are certain people who will buy it for that. And there are other people who need a much longer relationship. And it doesn't matter how damn good your webinar is or how great your VSL is, they're still not going to do it because it's just a very high sum of money. They would need to just have a lot more touch points. So is that kind of the reason why you went for that route, or because you saw like that scale barrier being hit a lot earlier? Or
yeah, so it actually comes back to just like the standard value ladder. Like, if anybody's ever read anything from Russell Brunson, he obviously talks about the value ladder. And it's like you said, if you start at the highest tier, then it's like people have to you're going to have all these people at the bottom that are coming in. If you're doing a webinar or you're doing a VSL, you're going to have a lot of people that come in and then they look up and they're like, holy man, that's quite a jump, and it's actually harder to scale. But again, it's highly profitable and you can definitely make the economics work and then reverse engineer what they need to get to that point and step up closer to that point, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, so just to answer your question though, like with Sales Mentor, you know, I would say that's definitely an anomaly of a product because like we it was just it was crazy how much it was converting and how many
Mm.
people at one point when we initially launched we had I think close to like 60% of people were taking the upsell. So
Wow.
the average order value was like 350 and we were acquiring customers for like 70 $80 at the start, and then as we scaled the offer it obviously grew to about $100 CPA.
Hmm.
And but you know but we were able to keep the AOV pretty strong. And you know so to that point though it's like if you want to really scale the back end once you get your front end offer working, then it becomes an operations injection where you need salespeople. You need to be able to manage those salespeople well. You need to have systems in order to, you know, give them the workflows they need to move people through a pipeline or through the CRM that you're using. And also, if you're generating like 25, 50, 100 buyers a day, then or in our case actually there was 1 month where we were doing like 400 450 buyers a day.
Hmm.
And you know it got to a point where we had to at one point I think we had like 10 different people just on support to answer the tickets because there were so many tickets coming in. So as sexy of a word as scaling is, and everybody's like, oh man, I want to scale, I want to get to 7 figures, everything else, you have to really slow down and ask yourself, is that something I truly want? Because there's like a an opportunity cost that comes with that, where yes, you can do that, but then it's probably going to require, you know, you're going to hire a bunch of people. You may have to fire a bunch of people, you know, and more importantly too, you have to be able to sustain that level of scale in order to support all the people you're bringing on and the infrastructure that you're building. Because one thing you definitely don't want to do is scale up like crazy, scale to 7 figures, and then you know 7 figures a month or whatever your goal is, and then you hire all these people, you go out, you make all these changes, you start spending more, and then you know maybe your ad account gets shut down or something happens, and
Hmm.
then next month it's like boom, you're back down to, you know, maybe you're like a couple $100,000 short, and then you're panicking, you're reactive, you don't know what's going on. And usually people in that first month of like real level of scale, they'll get a misrepresentation of how profitable the business actually is, because
Hmm.
if it's like usually it's inflated when you scale, but then over
Hmm.
time it kind of balances out and it'll go to a point where it's more stabilized because you've actually given people enough time to refund, people to leave, people to not
Mm.
buy, and stuff like that. So there is a lot of stuff that comes with scaling that you have to be really careful with. So I would recommend definitely taking your time. And if I was to do it again, I don't know if I would scale to 7 figures over like a 3 or 4 month period, because
Hmm.
it broke a lot of operations, and it took us probably 3 months of fixing things, building infrastructure and all kinds of stuff just to build the things that were required to maintain that level of scale. And then, you know, now it's super healthy. It's still doing 7 figures a month. You know, like I said, sometimes multiple 7 figures a month. And we have the infrastructure, we have the people, and everything is rocking and rolling. But just know that you're in for a wild ride if you go that route.
Yeah, and that's super interesting, as you said, because when you're scaling, those numbers seem inflated. Because when you're scaling, you haven't hired the support reps yet. You're probably like going like working like 100 hours a week because you know there's like so much shit to do. But it's like, yeah, those human resources to be able to kind of take things to stability, that cost money, right? The operations and the um, fulfillment side. And that's also interesting what you said about 10 support reps, right? Like it's a lot of support reps.
Well, we had a goal to get our support ticket response time down to 10 minutes or less. And that's what it took. So we made it happen.
That's really awesome. I'm curious, what was you mentioned, so it was like a $97 offer, right? On the front end.
Correct.
And then what were the upsells like?
So it was 97 to a 497 upsell.
Hmm.
So it was like, and this offer is still out there right now. So the inbound closer accelerator, which is like the 3-week crash course on everything you need to know about sales to be successful, and then the client attraction blueprint. So it's the skill and how to get clients, because I think a lot of times, you know, people will do one or the other. So we wanted to make sure that we gave them the ability to learn the skill as quickly as they could, even if they were coming in completely fresh, never done sales before, and how to get their first client within 21 days. And that program is actually very straightforward, very like logically easy to follow and everything else. And then basically then we actually, the upsell is a certification program where they get advanced training from our own internal sales rep. We had another kind of like a guru trainer that came in and did a bunch of certification content as well. And then when you're done all that, you actually take an assessment, and if you pass, then you get a certification badge and everything else. So it helps with credibility, landing clients, and you also get added to a private network of business owners that are looking to hire salespeople who are certified through the program. So even that alone, is a huge project and almost like its own mini business of its own, because you've got to we're spending ads to bring in business owners that are ideally looking for salespeople that we can add to the group. So we're spending our own money to bring in opportunities for them so that we can market the offer harder and harder. Because if you scale too hard and you're not getting results for your clients and your customers, then eventually what will happen is that you've got such a large pool of people that don't have results that if the ratio is too far off, then you're going to have a lot of other issues like support issues and bad Reddit threads and stuff like that. But if you actually look at, if you were ever inside the Inbound Closer Facebook group, it is just lighting up all the time with people that have never done sales before. And then, they close 5 out of their first 10 calls. And it's like, how do you have a 50% closing rate if you've never even done sales before? But it's just because the training is that good. And we wanted to make it that good. So as much as, like I said, you need to validate the offer, you need to make sure that the product, once you know it's going to sell, you need to make that product as freaking amazing as you can so that you get results for your customers as much as you can. And then after the $497 was just a payment plan of $99 times 5. So it's like a 5-pay plan. And for a little while, we had a second downsell that was $49, which is a 10 payment plan. So it's because it makes it a no-brainer. That's like, oh my God, it's only $50 a month for 10 months. I can do that as opposed to, $500 up front. And then and then we ended up introducing a second product beyond the certification program, and it was called the Done For You Clients Package. And it was priced at $297. So it's kind of like it was kind of interesting because most people go through their upsell path like this, but we actually went like this. And then what happened is, I think there was too much in the first transaction. And then the problem is that if you introduce a product that is converting, but people refund at a higher rate, when people refund, they don't just refund the product that they don't like or they don't want. For some reason, they refund everything. So even if they love this training, they love the certification program, then they get this and they don't like it, they'll just be like, I want all my money back. And then you out all of that sale, and it definitely gives you a false representation of the health of the economics of the business. And so I would highly recommend that you try to, especially when you launch anything new or launching your own product, whether it's an info product or anything else, if you are going to have upsells and stuff like that, you want to be very cognizant of the fact that every single product counts as a variable in the machine, and every single machine, the more components you add, the less the likelihood of success is. So if you have one component and it works at 90% because nothing's perfect, then you have a 90% likelihood of success. If it's only working at a 50%, so let's say your CPA, your cost per acquisition target's $100, but you're at $150. Well, I would rank that as 6 out of 10. And because to get it to a 9 probably just takes a few tweaks or changing your sales copy, changing your VSL, maybe your ads, like you were talking to me earlier, to get that up to an 8 or a 9. But even if you have 2 components working at a 9 out of 10, that, and I'm doing some crazy math here in my head, but if you have 2 components working at 90%, then it ends up, I think, dropping it to 81%. So it's like, then you went from 90% to 81%. And my math could be completely wrong, but the point is, you want to be very careful not to be like, oh, you know what? I want to get maximum average order value. So I'm going to have this product followed by like 10 products, because what's going to happen is people are going to be, they're going to be overwhelmed. If you do ask for too much in that initial sale, like there is a breaking point where if you ask for too much, then they'll be like, oh man, I just spent like $800 like on the first day before they've even gone through anything. Then they'll refund everything because they'll have buyer's remorse, stuff sets in after they've made the purchase, and they're like, oh man, did I actually really want that course? And and then the other thing to be aware of is just making sure that if you are saying something in your marketing that's related to the product, make sure that the names of the product matches what the marketing says identically, because I've seen it time and time again where, people will say that it's called the XYZ blueprint, and then it's called the ABC system when you log in, and you're like, this isn't what I ordered. And then they just go refund because it's incongruent with what they've been sold on.
Yeah, that's true. I need to figure that out, because we say it's a expert YouTube ads course, and I guess when we talk to people, but in reality we should probably name it something else. We can't really name it that. So yeah, that's definitely a good point. I gotta find a name for my course. I'm selling it. People like it, but I gotta have a new name for it so that doesn't become an issue. So I had a couple other questions. And by the way, this whole conversation for me has been more valuable than literally most courses out there. This is if you guys are listening to this, this is stuff that's just next level, right? You literally would have to go to a $20,000 mastermind to learn a lot of this. So one question that I had is usually that, when you're doing these front end products, do you usually try to get people to book a call right after they, purchase the front end stuff? Or do you kind of have a salesperson follow up after a few days? What does that upsell process look like? Because as you said, you want to avoid overwhelm, right? If somebody just buys the front end offer and then right after they book a call, what does that look like versus somebody kind of going on a slow burn?
So again, it depends on how you want to do it, and then B, what kind of infrastructure do you have? Because if for example, you are, you're generating 100 buyers a day on the low ticket, but you only have one salesperson, then they might not be able to call everybody for 24, 72 hours, depending on how efficient they are and how good they are at what they do. I know for us internally, we have a huge sales team that's run by Taylor and his brother, and they're very, very good at what they do. We've also got, Josh Johnson, this guy, he's a legendary outbound salesperson. And essentially what we do is if somebody buys the front end program, the outbound sales rep will call them. Ideally, you want it to be as soon as possible. And, bonus thing too, is that people have been telling me that just adding the phone number to a VSL or a webinar opt-in, and then calling those people, right? Having somebody that just calls anybody who opts in and just says, hey, this is Blake, I just want to make sure that, you got access to the training. Okay. And, if you have 5 minutes to chat, I'd love to hear more about your goals and what you wanted to get out of the training to see if I can send you anything extra as a bonus. And then, people have been closing people like crazy just doing that, and just they're not even booking a call, but you're calling them because they've opted into the training. And so to go back to your question of how fast, what do you do? Typically it's, like I said, with us internally, it's about 24 hours or less. And then what the script or the method or the way that goes, and I'm not on the sales team, so I haven't been there and done that, but my understanding of what they do, especially with traffic and funnels and Sales Mentor, is they'll say, hey, my name is Blake, and I want to make sure that you've got access to the training program, make sure that I cover any questions you have. And then, number three is, talk about your goals and maybe what you were hoping to get out of the program.
Mhm.
And then they'll say, yeah, I got access to everything. I had a question about like, do I need experience to do this? And be like, no, all the training is inside the program. It's designed for you, whether you're just starting or you're experienced. So tell me, what are your goals? Like what made you jump into the program? And they'll be like, well, my goal is to get to 10K a month. I want to do this. I want to travel more, or like, I got a kid on the way. It could be anything. And then as you dig through that, you can ask them, well, what's your current situation look like? What does that future situation look like? And you just have a quick 15-minute call with them, like genuinely take an interest in their goals, who they are, what they want, and finding out if they sound like, based on like predetermined criteria that you have for who's the best fit for the high ticket program that you have. And then essentially being like, hey, well, you know what? We do have this coaching program that I can tell you about if you're interested, because it sounds like you'd be a really good fit. And then 9 times out of 10, if it is the right person, and not everybody's going to be, and you shouldn't be trying to set a call with every single person. You need to actually have your outbound person vet them. And then what you can do is essentially, just after you've done all that digging and everything else, and if they say, yeah, you know what, I'd love to know more about the coaching program, like tell me all about it, then you can say, well, you know what, I was actually just like hoping to talk to you about your goals and stuff like that and what you have going on. I would love to actually just set you up with one of our advisors who can tell you everything you need to know about the program, and what's involved, and what you need, et cetera, et cetera. But ideally, that person is going to take a little bit of time to handle any objections that they may have, so that when they jump on that call, because then they'll just set them with the advisor, which is like technically the closer in this case, or like the main or the inbound salesperson. They'll take the call and they'll already have like a list of notes. They'll know the goals, they'll know the objections, they'll know where they're at. And then it makes it a much smoother, easier sales process than if you're just jumping on every single call that comes in. And then, alternatively though, if you don't want to take as many calls, or you don't want to have an outbound person, you can sell the front end. And inside of your course training and your Kajabi modules, one of the biggest things we ever did was in the product sidebar, allow them to purchase, the upsell products in there, and just have a standalone funnel in there. Like we did multiple 6 figures just from putting a link inside of Kajabi. So it's insane how much money people leave on the table just because they think, oh, well, they bought. So they bought. But it's like, no, once they buy, they're a lead still. They need more nurturing. You need to bridge the gap from where they are when they come in to where you want them to go, as long as like authentically you're in alignment with taking them along that journey, and you know that you can get them amazing results. And alternatively too, you can have like a book a call link inside of your course login, or inside your product page, or if you have a members area, Facebook group, whatever. Make it very easy for them to book a call so that you generate even more inbound calls. Because people click those links. People think, well, no one's going to book a call. They know it's a sales call. It's like, people want to buy more from you if your core stuff is really good. So as long as you, like I said earlier, make the core product really good, take them further along that journey, and they'll be primed and ready and wanting to buy something more from you. Because the truth of the matter is this: if you don't sell them or offer them something, and you've taken them this far, they're going to go find it from somebody else. Why not have it be you?
Absolutely. And I mean, like, it's the other way around as well, right? Like, if you've got the high ticket offer, but you don't have the beginner introductory training, like, they're going to find somebody else. Like, they might like your content, they might do that, but the gap is just too big between, like, obviously the introductory offer and then, like, your high ticket stuff. And I mean, even in our case, right, like, all the buyers of our training program, they're usually like more intermediate marketers or people who run agencies, people who have businesses. While for the people who are just starting out, maybe they have a small agency, maybe they're a freelancer, maybe they're, they're like, they kind of want to mess around with YouTube ads, give it a try, but they don't want to invest a huge amount. That's definitely important to have something for those people. And that's something that I want to definitely work on. I'm curious with once people purchase, let's say they go to the front end sequence, do you guys have kind of an option at the end of that sequence to book a call, or is it more like you send them to the product to consume the content, right?
Yeah, so for us, because we do have such a big sales team, they just come in, they get the thank you page, and we just send them into the program right away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no reason why you can't have
Mm-hmm.
them schedule a call. And if you do have or if you want to filter the calls on the thank you page, once they buy your front end product, you could literally just say, book your welcome call. And then, because I know that other people have done this before very successfully. I've done it before in other businesses and products successfully, where it's like, thank you for buying, congratulations on taking such a great step, towards XYZ result, which just tie that to whatever else you've been saying the whole time. And then you say unadvertised bonus, we want to give you a welcome call to talk about your goals, make sure that you know where to find everything and whatever. And you could even say too, and offer you some free bonus training just for telling us like what you think. And you could just have like a very impactful, very quick training or cheat sheet or something like that you just have as a bonus training that you give to people on those calls, because they're taking the time to book, and it just builds more goodwill. You reduce your refund rates, because especially if some people, because there's a lot of like ClickBank offers and stuff like that where people buy and then they just end up in like the nether realm of wherever they are in Bizop land somewhere. But with offering them a call, they're like, oh wow, like this must be like a legitimate business if they're able to jump on the phone with me, and it like re-solidifies and reaffirms their decision to make the purchase. And then as soon as they talk to you, you definitely don't want to like jump onto that call and be like, all right, well, we got a high ticket thing for you here, let's get rocking and rolling. You definitely want to, you actually do want to welcome them and then ask them about their goals, but it can literally be the same script that I mentioned earlier about the outbound, but except now it's like an inbound. It's your first filtration, and if they come through, worst case scenario, you build way more goodwill, and your outbound sales team can put them in their pipeline and follow up with them like every week, every couple weeks, and then over time they'll have way more appointments that they can set for the closers or for the advisors that you have. Or alternatively, you just have a client success person take those calls and welcome them and stuff like that, just to reduce any friction coming into the program, reduce refund rates. You could shift it to a group welcome call as well, if you have like a system in place to have them register for that. Or like you could set up like a weekly recurring group welcome call on Zoom or in your Facebook group, and just send them the link to register for that. And you can do that alternatively too.
Yeah, I really like the idea of the welcome call, where it's just like, just let's talk about your goals. Let's make sure you have access, etc. Because then, it's a very softball way of figuring out if they're qualified or not. And then if they are qualified, then, obviously like setting up the secondary call to actually get them into the higher ticket offer. And that makes so much sense. One thing I'm going to be trying, currently we're working on an offer here in Brazil, where we basically have a front-end offer, which is kind of like a recurring offer. And then the upsell is a proven recurring offer, right? Like it's a proven offer, one-time proven offer, but the format is perfect for recurring, because it's basically like kind of something where you get content every month, and it makes sense because it's kind of like a content calendar thing. And people love the one time. So we're going to try it with the recurring. And then basically the goal is, as of this point, okay, get them in the recurring, but then right after they purchase that, basically have a kind of a quick little VSL, which is like, hey, thanks for purchasing. Here's how you get access. By the way, if you're running an agency, I wanted to kind of basically talk about like one of the biggest issues you guys have, which is lead generation, and then basically go into like kind of like a typical VSL that we have. Like we've already kind of tested it. It's done okay, but basically seeing if we can first with those buyer traffic, see if that VSL can turn those people. But I love like kind of some of the ideas you had, because that gives us a few other ways to do it, right? So instead of just doing front-end recurring offer to basically the VSL, we can do front-end recurring offer, maybe have an upsell in there, and then basically welcome call, right? That's all an alternate. So that's really cool. Like this is So this gives me some really good ideas as to what to do with that, because the biggest issue we were having is just with that offer was just lack of qualified leads, right? Because I think the US market people are just like they have more money and they're willing to spend a lot more money, while in some of these other countries, like people will be willing to spend like a little bit of money, but the high ticket stuff isn't caught on yet
Yeah.
as much in other countries.
Yeah, totally. There's a little bit of delay, right, for other countries getting on board with everything. But I know that, like, obviously Canada and like a lot of the European countries, UK, Australia, like they're already like in the game for sure, and they've been along for the ride. But the US is definitely leading the charge for the high ticket stuff.
Absolutely. And I think as people, kind of like it builds an ecosystem as well, because, kind of like once people start, it builds a whole ecosystem around it, right? Like you wouldn't really have this whole ecosystems of needing sales closers unless you were selling high ticket. And you wouldn't really have had that unless like the first person was like, okay, here's how I'm going to teach you how to do high ticket. And then now there's like programs for like, ads for high ticket. There's programs for like, how to do sales for high ticket. There's programs for how to do organic for high tickets. So it's like built this whole ecosystem. And I think, usually like once, like if people buy one high ticket program, they get good results. They're gonna buy more, right? Like, I remember when I bought my first high ticket from Sam Owens, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. This is definitely worth the money I paid for it. And I was like, all right, like it makes sense for me. Like if we see an offer that's really good, just buy more. And that's again why the front end stuff really is useful, because a lot of people, right, like they kind of just need more time with you to really understand your offer and really understand what you're about and see that you're legitimate. While I think that the typical kind of like, there's a certain subset of buyers that, let's say they'll watch a VSL, they'll get on a call, and then they'll be like, okay, like, if you have the right sales script, etc., they'll make a decision. But then there's other people who literally take like months to be like, okay, I kind of have this problem. I want to resolve it. I want to look at all the options and then like go from there, right? So I feel like a lot of these programs and trainings, they often focus on just one type of person, right? They're just like, hey, we're going to teach you how to sell using this funnel, but you're only getting like 20% of the market. While if you have different offers and you have different also marketing methods, you're able to get a much bigger piece of the pie, because now, you're getting the people who are the more long-term people who are going to basically, they might see your ad and they're going to kind of basically get into your universe with that, but they're going to just consume a ton of your content. And then out of nowhere, they're just going to jump on the sales call and buy your 6K offer, even though they've never bought anything from you before, just because they've consumed your content. They're like, okay, I understand this. Well, there are other people who are going to like buy your low ticket and then like, eventually get there. So I think that's something you make a really good point with. It's just like, having multiple offers allows you to kind of take that and like take advantage of that. And so does multiple marketing methods, which is why I'm like, I always, I think that, for me, right, like our YouTube channel, even though it's pretty small, I continue to work on it because I know the people who come into the paid ads, like if they're kind of interested, they're going to probably watch that content, and that usually leads to sales.
Right. And the other thing too is that you've got so many people, like you said, that have created this high ticket ecosystem and this high ticket methodology for everything, that there's a big piece of whatever market you're in, there's a big piece of people who are, or like you said, like a subset of the market who they're like, yeah, I know you have this 10K thing, but like, I just want to try it. Like, I want to see, like, I want to dip my toes in first. And, not everybody's going to just take a plunge and jump right in. So by having the front end available, you might be able to actually tap into all of this awareness that all these other high ticket people are doing. Because if you have like 10 people who are all high ticket, they're going to obviously speak differently to certain people and people will buy that stuff. But like if one person out of the 10 offers an introductory front end offer, then they're likely just going to all everybody that's been following the other 9, they're going to go on that one person, because they're like, oh, well, they have a thing that's like $50 or $49 or $27 that I can jump into right away and get a result and know if this person's legit and if I do want to buy a 10K thing or a 5K thing from them.
And I think the secret then is making that $47 or $97 offer way better than anything else in the market. Yeah. Like in terms of just like if your core offer is really, really exceptional, you want to make sure you take kind of a portion of that that like provides some results, but doesn't give the whole thing away. And then give that. And also, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think a big part about any of these trainings, etc., it's not just the core training itself, but all the, all the issues that come up while you're trying to go something. So with YouTube ads, I think there's just like, there's a few things we're working on, right, in our training program. Number one is like a whole new tracking module, which unfortunately, because of iOS 14.05, we've kind of have to redo it. So just like throw a spanner, tracking module, working on an e-commerce CRO module and an info product CRO module. Because what we discovered is that a lot of people, they're pretty good at optimizing ads, but they're kind of like, their landing page doesn't convert, or their product page doesn't convert. And so we're like, okay, we need to find people who are experts in that, work with them to build a training specifically solving that need, and then basically have like a kind of a system where it's like, hey, if your click-through rates are really good, your ad's really good, like it's an engaging ad, and let's say, you're using all of our audience targeting, basically best practices, and you're trying a wide variety of audiences and things are not working, then you need to start looking at your landing pages. And we want to give them the tools for that, right? Because we want to try to like make it like a all-in-one solution versus just like making them like go out there and try to like figure it out on their own, right? Like make it easy, be like, hey, here's the e-commerce CRO module, go there, like try to get your conversion rate up by 50%, then your ads will be profitable. So that's like one thing that we're really trying to do, is just focus on kind of like with an offer, instead of just solving that like, hey, like this one technical thing, like, hey, you want to learn YouTube ads, let me teach you how to do YouTube ads. But in reality, if they want to do YouTube ads as shown by you, it's like you have to have the right offer, you have to have the right ascension ladder, you have to have the right sales team, you have to like, there's all these pieces, while really none of this would work if like, you didn't have all of this whole structure, right?
Right.
Like the reason YouTube ads work awesome for you is because you have all of this, right?
Yeah, and it's very true. And there's only so much you can do at the ad level. Like if you're doing, like if your click-through rates, your CPMs, your CPCs, everything is like in really good standing, but you're getting, like $100 a lead, then it's like clearly there's something wrong with the funnel itself and the actual ability to convert. And it doesn't matter what you do on the ad level, you'll never get it down to $25 from 100 unless you do the CRO. And you're once you make your products, your customers will identify the gaps a lot of time for you if you listen carefully enough.
Yeah.
And especially if you have a Facebook group, they'll say, like, you'll see people asking the same question, then you're like, you know what,
tracking,
I'm just going to make it.
testing. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you just build it, and then the product gets better and better and better over time.
Absolutely. That's 100%. That's very, very true. And I think that's also one of the better things about, like, let's say if you're an agency getting into the info market, or you already have kind of an infrastructure, is you can kind of tap into that, versus somebody who's just running an info product. You're kind of like, it's a little bit tougher to do that, because like I got, like we got the agency, we got a bunch of people who are like experts at like tracking and like all this stuff. So if I'm like, okay, this iOS 14, like this funny example, today we had a student call, and one of our students was like really like trying to get into the technical sides of like iOS 14 and like Kairos, and like, like whether basically, we were able to feed the right data into the Google algorithm after the new update, right? And so I was kind of struggling with some of it, because like this is literally happening right now. We're trying to still figure out a lot of this. So I just had basically my business partner who's like in charge of agency operations, and we just dove deep in, and he's like, yep, this is exactly what's going on. I jumped on a call with the guy, basically Wicked reports, here's how their method works exactly, here's how Hyros works exactly, this is what you need to do, or this is the best that you can do, right? Like there's no ideal solution. Like it's kind of messed up with iOS 14. There's no like perfect solution, but there are things you can do to make it better. And I found that that's kind of a useful part where you have an existing team. So like in your case, you were able to leverage like traffic and funnels, where you just took this whole infrastructure and you're like, you need sales guys? You didn't need to hire like 20 sales guys from zero, right? Like there's already an infrastructure. They probably had extra sales guys. And if you need to hire sales guys, there's like a proven process and onboarding. So that's, I find that really useful when and that's why I think more agency owners should actually get into the info market, because I think they'll do a lot better job than most of the gurus out there.
Yeah, for sure. And like the interesting thing is, especially with Sales Mentor, the original intention was to like make a self-liquidating offer that also provides an endless supply of salespeople who already know their sales methods.
Yeah.
So if you're an agency that specializes in TikTok ads and you make a course that shows people how to run TikTok ads, you'll never run out of people that can run TikTok ads for your agency because you're creating all of them and they know everything that you do.
Absolutely. Like that's what we do. We just train people through our course, like a lot of coaching, but also through our course. And it's like they kind of come in with a philosophy already embedded in. And then obviously, we hire people from our group as well. And then I know you've probably talked to some people from inside the group as well. And yeah, I like way more qualified than your average Joe Schmo's kind of like, not taking the time to kind of go through our full training.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to find, especially in like this industry, it's hard to find the right people on Indeed or ZipRecruiter, because you get people, when you put media buyer posting out there, you get people who buy like billboard ads or or people who buy newspaper ads, and you're like, no, I need you to know the Google Ads platform. And it's like, what better way to do it than to teach your own philosophy that's already time tested and proven, deliver great value, so they're already built in on your culture and what you stand for as a person and as a company. And then when they come in, they're already like halfway, they can hit the ground running because they're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, 100%. That was a huge part behind the YouTube ads course. Like, it's just like, it's there. It like makes so much sense. It's like everything makes sense. Media buyers, also, people who may want to work with agencies, that kind of all fits in. So one thing I'm curious about on the YouTube ad side, right? What do you think, in your opinion, is probably the most important factor to scaling YouTube ads? Is it kind of the ad side of things, like having a really amazing creative, or is it the audience side of things, like having really great audiences?
It's kind of a sweet spot between the two. I would argue that based on everything I've seen, the number one thing is the creative itself. And I know that we were talking about this, a couple times before, but like when we were doing 400 sales a day with Inbound Closer, the number one thing that happened, or that we did, it wasn't anything crazy we did. We didn't change any audiences. We didn't change targeting. We didn't change devices or anything like that. We didn't change anything. We didn't make a new exclusion list. We introduced a new ad creative that just took off like wildfire, and then we scaled it to the moon. And like, I think that creative, we were able to spend like $20,000 a day on that one piece of creative for, I think, over a month before it like completely burned out. And again, I would advise that you don't do that. Ideally, you want to scale at a healthier pace, take your time with it, appreciate, like, ride the wave, of course. If you have a wave, ride it, but like, don't burn out your creatives so quickly that you're always scrambling to make new ones. But the biggest thing we've done is create a process for new ad creative, and just constantly filming and introducing new creative all the time, because you never really know which one's going to hit. And also, don't recreate the wheel. Like, look at your best performing ads, and then look at the factors that are within them that you can use and leverage and make other ads that are like them or follow a similar thing. And a lot of times it comes down to the hook, right? So especially with YouTube, is like, what's the hook that you're using? And like, what's the setting? What are you saying in the first 5 seconds? Because a lot of times people will get like a winning piece that works really well, but it's usually the first 5 to 30 seconds that really hooks somebody in for like a high enough view rate to get the click-throughs and stuff that you need. But then they'll like recreate the whole back of it, and it's like, they'll recreate the front and then attach the back on again. And it's like, no, you already had the front working. Like, do the front piece again, because that's like one of the most important parts, arguably the most important part. And then you build, or you can actually tack on the body of a previous ad that, you already know that it gets the clicks, it sells the clicks well, the click-through rate's really good. So it's like, just stick with the hook and the angle that has been proven to work, and then just come up with other creative ways to lean into that hook and angle instead of being like, oh, you know, my it's clearly my targeting that's off. And it's like, no, you don't have any good ad creatives that are working. So I would say ad creative first, but I do think it is a good marriage between the two once you get the ad creative working.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with that. And I agree also with what you said about the scaling side. Um, we learned that as well, because the thing is, when you're scaling too aggressively, there's going to be two things that's going to happen. Number one is your cost per acquisition is going to go up, right? Like, which is totally going to happen. And number two, your refund rates are going to go up because you don't have the infrastructure for scale, right? Like, you don't have the support
Yeah,
reps, you don't have
exactly.
that. So I would actually say that, yeah, obviously when you do have a solid wave, like, yeah, you want to ride it, but you want to kind of be a little bit more conservative. Assume that your refund rates are going to go up because, you know, things like you're just going to have slower support. You're just going to have less support for a lot of new customers. And what that will do is you'll actually make a lot more money, because when you're scaling, yeah, the cost per acquisition on going up, you can see that and you can like react to that. What you can't react to is the fact that a month later your refund rates are going to be spiking up because, or, you know, like 2 to 4 weeks later your refund rates are going to be spiking up because of the fact that that's like an, basically it's a kind of something that's hidden. It's a hidden risk that nobody really thinks about, but that can happen as you scale. And we had that happen with one of our offers, is that we scaled very aggressively in January, and then just refunds definitely increased. And at the end of it, we still made a good amount of profit, but it was like, okay, maybe if you go a little bit slower, or you maybe set a little bit stricter standards, right? You factor that in, assume that refund rates are going to go up, right? And then when you look at, you know, based on the decisions that you're giving, kind of you're making, right, and the kind of metrics you're giving your media buyers, like, hey, let's keep scaling. If you're doing X ROAS, you need to factor that in, right? So if you're like, hey, let's keep scaling as long as we're getting, let's say, a 1.7x ROAS, you might want to be like, okay, if you assume like refund rate's going to go up a bit, all right, let's keep scaling until, you know, as long as we do a 1.9, right? Just factor that in, because that's going to kind of help you avoid that loss later on.
Hey guys, before we move on, I wanted to talk about something very special very quickly. I wanted to introduce you to a few people that are killing it with YouTube ads. Mike made over $1.5 million with e-commerce YouTube ads. Bastian did over $300,000 for a client at a 10x ROAS. Boyd's making $5 grand a day with his course. Kale made a client $40,000 from just $8,000 in ad spend. Lloyd made a client $33,000 from $12,000 in ad spend. Do you know what the one thing they have in common? They're all part of my expert YouTube ads training program. We have the most technical YouTube ads course in the market, with live weekly calls, a Facebook group where you can ask any question you want about YouTube ads, and more. And some of the best students spending thousands or even $10,000 a day on YouTube advertising. So there's a link below in the description to go book a demo call. Go and book a call to get a preview of the course and see if it's a fit for you and if it can help you get your YouTube ads to $5,000 a day or more. Now let's get back to the rest of this video.
So that's definitely something we learned, and it's you got to be careful. Scaling sounds sexy, but, you know, it can be, you know, it's not as simple as people think. And I guess everybody likes to just be like, oh yeah, I scaled to this much per day, but it's like, you know, it's much better to the whole year you made money versus like for 5 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think I had another question that I was going to ask you, but actually, yeah, what I was going to say is I agree 100% on the creative versus audiences. I would definitely say that the creative needs more attention, while the audience side of things, yes, absolutely, you need to be testing stuff, you need to be doing all the optimization, all the bidding stuff, but I think people underestimate the creative side. In my opinion, if you're looking at amount of time spent, right? Now, obviously, if you're really smart, the media buyer does the media buying, right? And maybe they provide input on creative. They deliver the creative reports. Like they tell you, hey, this creative is working. These are the stats, the aggregate stats, and they run like the pivot reports on all of that. But ultimately, like, there needs to be somebody who's like really focused in on the creative and really just making that good. And the other thing that we're kind of seeing is that while you can have a good click-through rate, that doesn't 100% correlate to being a good creative. What we've seen is that while a 2% click-through rate is generally a good standard, sometimes you can actually have ads that suck, but they get people to click. They induce enough curiosity to get people to click, but nobody actually buys. And we've seen this with e-commerce kind of ads, but there are ads that we've tested where people are like, okay, this kind of looks interesting. I'm kind of interested in this topic. I'm going to click on it, but nobody buys. And if we looked at the ad, it's like, okay, this ad doesn't do a good job of selling them on the product, of them convincing that this product is actually something that they have a desire to buy. It just induces curiosity and kind of like, oh, I want to check this out. So that's something you want to think about, where you can have these metrics, but like the ad can actually affect conversion rate down the funnel. So the ad can affect your opt-in rate. The ad can affect your let's say the number of people who watch your VSL and book your call. The ad can affect the number of people who go to your e-commerce store, add to cart, and then purchase. And because of that, it's easy to be kind of misled, because you'll be like, hey, my click-through rate is decent, but nobody's buying. Is it because YouTube ads don't work? No, it's not because YouTube ads don't work. It's because you're dealing with, like psychology and marketing, and dealing with video ads, right? Which is like, it adds another layer. So you kind of have to pre-sell them before they actually go there. You have to make sure they're hyped for whatever's on the next page. And sometimes you can get like the easy, cheap clicks, and you can do that through a lot of techniques. But if they're not really convinced, or if they're not really excited about taking the action that needs to be taken after that, that can cause issues. So 100% agreed with that. And I think business, like if you're running an info business, maybe if you have a media buyer that's like really focused in on the media buying, that's awesome. Make sure they're doing their job, etc. But you really do need to make sure that either you, or like you have a really good copywriter, somebody's really focused on the creative, and then on top of the script being really good, because you can have an awesome script, but if it's not delivered the right way, you're not going to get a great result. Like, and I've seen this with, basically, unfortunately, with people who are not like, they kind of like view the creative as like, kind of like, I guess I got to shoot this, like, I'll do it. But that can lead to some high lead costs. So you have to make sure that you deliver it. And the way I kind of recommend doing that is like literally, and I did this myself, that's why I'm saying I recommend this, is like, get your script in front of your laptop and spend like a few hours, like with like maybe like 5 or 6 different scripts, like go through each one like 3 or 4 times, try different delivery, try doing one where you speak super fast, try doing another one where you speak like a little bit slower, but you try to like do tonality higher at some points, tonality lower at some points. And then if you're able to kind of be a better basically speaker, and people kind of want to listen to you, then your ads are going to perform significantly better, and your conversion rates across the funnel will improve, and you'll make better sales videos, etc. So
I've seen we've done like teleprompter apps before, and like we'll put a teleprompter app on a tablet or something, and you have to be careful, like you said, with the talent, because sometimes they'll be like, all right, so today I'm going to show you the 5 secrets to getting profitable YouTube ads. And like, you could tell that they're like reading a script, right? And it's like, it's sometimes it's like, just have bullet points, and then you can always clean it up in editing later. Like you can cut apart the pieces in between, as opposed to, like just be like, hey, stop what you're doing right now, because I've got 5 secrets I need to show you about how to develop and launch your next 5 profitable YouTube campaigns. And it's like, I don't have a script, but it's like, just even having that more energy versus like, yeah, so today, we're talking about campaigns on YouTube. It's like, and people will be like, yeah, next, thank you, next, because it's like you said, it's not engaging enough to garner the view, which will get you to click.
Yeah, or hire somebody to do the ad.
Or hire somebody, even better.
Like I kid you not, we have an ad running right now. It's not me, it's my business partner who looks completely different than me. I did the VSL, he did the ad. It's like the best converting like ad we've had. And it's like, it makes no sense, right? Like, but people overthink it, right? They're like, oh, I did the VSL, I did the video, or I did the webinar, so I have to be on the ad. No, you can literally hire like a really good voice actor from Upwork and be like, hey, this is exactly I wanted. Send him examples of other ads. Like, let's say, send him ads that perhaps, Dean Graziosi did, right? Like that guy's awesome on ads. Or Russell Brunson, be like, hey, this is kind of the energy I want. This is the script. Get them to do the ad and see how it works, because we've literally done that, where we've run a spokesperson ads for clients, and it's outperformed clients' ads significantly. So yeah, you don't need to be charismatic. If you're not charismatic, hire somebody or just practice. Either one of those work. And literally 2 hours of practicing, like your ad delivery will get like 2 or 3 times better. It's just one of those things that it's such a crucial piece of the puzzle. And I think people ignore it because it's like, oh, it's a 2-minute ad, doesn't really matter. But in reality, it's their first impression of your brand.
It's everything, if anything.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, definitely like the audiences are important as well. But in my experience, like when you start scaling up offers, broader and broader audiences work better. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, we've done actually we've done quite a bit of scaling with custom affinity audiences. And if you can find those that work really well, even just doing in-market audiences, like we do quite a bit of that too. Obviously when you're getting started, like the profit is typically in like placements and keywords, and it's easier to get those to work within a good CPA. But when you're going to scale, pull up your audience insights and your research and stuff like that, and just dig in, see what you can find, because sometimes you're like, what? How could this possibly be related to the people who are converting? Or like ideally you want to look for similarities between the conversion event and people booking a call, right? Because then if you have enough data on that, that's amazing, because then you can just see the exact type of people that are going to book a call with provided that they're closing with your team. But yeah, so we've actually expanded quite a bit out of there. Like we've gotten quite a few just like custom audiences to work too, like just targeting similar websites to stuff that may be related to the industry that we're running for. So anything is fair game. You gotta, once you get your key profitable campaigns working, then it's like, all bets are off when it comes to scaling, and you can find pockets of profit in anything as long as you test enough stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, the audience insights, that's inside Google Analytics, or you can also find one inside Google Ads as well. But basically, you can go inside, you can look at your basically correlated audiences. So topics, affinity audiences, etc., in-market audiences that are related to the people that converted. So basically, Google's like kind of like, okay, these kind of people are more likely to convert, and you take those audiences and run with them. And that's kind of one of the tools we use to be able to really kind of launch a lot of campaigns that are likely to work. And it's surprising. Like we'll have like green living enthusiast as like an audience that's highly correlated with conversions, and we'll run that and it will just work super well, and we'll be like, okay, great. And that's why, again, like one of the biggest issues I see with YouTube advertisers who are at a beginner or lower intermediate level is they're too picky with their audiences. They're like, I want this like super targeted audience that's like super relevant. And I'm like, I can literally say that 100% all the biggest campaigns we've run, all the biggest like campaigns we've scaled have been like, most of the time there have been so many campaigns in there that are completely unrelated. I swear that NFL.com was a custom audience that we used for like a high ticket done for you offer. We're spending $5K a day on that because on NFL.com.
Instead of like whether it's Facebook or Google, YouTube, whatever, like we are moving more in a direction of getting your messaging right, getting your ad creative really solid. And like Google is a multi-billion, trillion, I don't even know how much dollar enterprise that is developed this algorithm over how many years now. It's like, let the algorithm find the pockets of the conversion actions that you're going for, instead of trying to like ninja hack your way. And you're like, oh, I want to target, Grant Cardone's neighbors within a 10-mile radius. It's like, that's not going to work for very long. It's not scalable. Like you said, you need to have the bigger audiences that allow you to scale at the KPIs that you have. And it just comes down to like looking for those pockets and testing them.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen. I agree 100% with that. What we see is that with Facebook, yeah, you can. I find that Facebook's typically good for like those kind of smaller audiences and being able to kind of go the sniper approach. While with YouTube, it's really a market for people who want to scale offers like big, right? It's not, in my opinion, the best platform if you want like a 30,000 a month lifestyle, like easy business with some automated, like low ticket offer. In Facebook, you can find those pockets and go for that. But on YouTube, this is the platform that you want if you want to be able to really scale stuff up. But that also means that you kind of have to have your messaging super sharp. And once you have that done, then you can kind of really expand out and be quite aggressive with it. which is what I think, you guys are pretty awesome at, is just figuring out the messaging.
Yeah. It's just, we just keep trying different things and keep writing new ads, and the copywriter and the media buyer are always giving data back and forth to each other.
Exactly. That's really important. And one thing that I recommend everybody do is, like, every week run a pivot table, so you can download the data. I have this in my training program, but it's pretty easy to figure out if you know Excel. It's just like download the data for like all the different ads, run a pivot table, look at the aggregate data so you can see how the ads are doing across all the campaigns, right? So like if you might be running that one ad in 20 campaigns, but you want to be able to see the aggregate data based on that. You want to make sure your whole like creative team knows what's working and not working. And based on that, like, yeah, just keep making variations of that winning ad. Like, try some edits, try adding some countdowns, or try adding some captions, try making it look fancy, add some B-roll, and maybe create a new hook or angle based on that. But basically, when you find something that's working well, just keep going at it and keep trying to make new variations. And it's really a matter of, like, you kind of have to have a creative system for it versus just like randomly shooting things out.
Yeah, 100%. And if you are in a pinch too, like what we've done is we'll have, like, if we want to shoot 5 different scripts, but let's say that the person that's filming only has like 30 minutes or something like that. It's like, we'll do 1 or 2 body scripts, and then we'll just change the first 30 seconds of each one, like have a different pattern interrupt and a different 30-second introduction, and the rest of it's the same. And then you can easily bang out like a whole bunch of those, and then you can just, as long as it's in the same location, you can easily just like kind of edit them so that the new, like, all those different hooks and starters are attached to the different bodies. And if you write 2 of those and you have 5 different hooks, then that's actually 10 ads that you can have in one
Absolutely.
shoot.
Yeah, that's what we do. We kind of we'll do, like, let's say like 4 different hooks and 2 different bodies, and then you got 8 variations. One tip I would have if you're shooting your own ads is I would definitely recommend trying out teleprompter. I found that it helps me a lot personally with just basically staying in front of the camera and being able to, like, really focus on the delivery and on just being natural. Like, for some other people, teleprompters don't work well, but I actually like, it kind of depends on how you do it. Like, if you really focus in on like the teleprompter being at the right eye height, if it's like a little bit higher, it's like, if it's not exactly where the camera is. So there's like types of teleprompters where it actually will be, it will reflect off an iPad, like it will have a little glass thing, and the camera will be basically shooting through the little glass thing. I don't know how it works exactly, but it's perfect because it looks like you're looking right at the camera, while there are other teleprompters that are like a little bit above or below, and it will look just a little bit off. It will just look a little bit off. So that's just like a little tip for those of you guys running your own offers. Yeah, and I think we're like an hour and a half in. So for the sake of making sure people can, like, basically continue on with their lives, probably put this to an end. Yeah, what would be your biggest piece of advice to people who are kind of like starting out with YouTube advertising, that are kind of beginners at this stuff?
I would say definitely start doing YouTube advertising, because if you're not using the platform right now, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Because like I said, and this is coming from a Facebook guy too. So I've been definitely digging into YouTube more and more, and I know that things on Facebook are getting harder and harder, especially at scale, and it's much more volatile. But YouTube, like, alone, we were only running on YouTube, and we scaled up to like 2 million in a month. So imagine what it can do for you if you're able to crack it, and you have the right program and or the right coach or the right agency to help you get there. Then pull the trigger and stop sitting and waiting around for it.
That is great advice. Yeah, absolutely. Get on the YouTube train. It's definitely well, I mean, in general, you just want to be learning paid advertising. While my preferred platform is YouTube, I also, like, I'm not opposed to using Facebook ads. I run Facebook retargeting. I'm pretty platform agnostic despite selling a YouTube ads program. Like, I'll just use whatever's working, but
yeah,
for definitely YouTube's working pretty well right now. So
yeah, it is.
Get on it. So yeah, thanks, Blake. Where can people find out more about you? Where can they reach out if they have any questions or?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and I actually don't really have much. If you want, like, I can give my Instagram handle or something.
Mhm.
But I'm kind of an enigma right now. So I'm like behind the scenes and doing my
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, if you want to know more, like just look me up and add me on Facebook. I have like a Superman photo that like I kind of look like Clark Kent in that photo. Obviously, I've grown my hair out for COVID styles right now, but
Mhm.
you know, I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. Add me on Instagram, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Yeah, yeah. So I really appreciate you getting on here, and this was super valuable. Just learned a ton, and yeah, hopefully we'll get you back on here to drop more knowledge.
Totally. Thanks for having
Cheers.
me.
And yeah, guys, don't forget to subscribe and smash the like button so I can keep getting geniuses like Blake on this channel. Cheers, everybody.